I write for the
I swear it matched up with your lips. It kind of
I
freaked
know,
me out
right?
there for a moment.
Oh my goodness. So I'm Kaylee. I write for the mamadiaries.com. Thank you guys so much for speaking with me today. So I have seen a few episodes of Curses, and I think it's really fun. I like it. It's gonna premiere right in time, for spooky season, right? Like you guys timed that well. Um, Jim, I would love to know what was the inspiration behind creating this series?
Well, believe it or not, it actually, so okay, Jeff and I are two dads who have had total separate careers. That our kids were going to school together, and we would walk back from dropping them off at school and just kind of talk shop. And we ended up like literally standing on the street corner for like an hour, just talking about story. And we'd always wanted to find something that Jeff was always more in the horror realm, and I was more family animation background. And one day we were literally talking about my family history, in that my dad actually died when I was a kid. And we've joked that the family had a curse because like all the men of that generation, died before they were 50. And my cousin was looking through my grandpa's photo album and found this photo. So the young man holding the human skull is my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
And so my cousin goes, well, think we found the source of the family curse. And Jeff and I were kind of like tossing around the idea of curses, and we're like, okay, clearly it's the skull. Whose skull is it? What do you do to end the curse? And it just sort of like kind of grew from there, just logically. And then we were just talking about Indiana Jones in reverse. Like, okay, what do all these artifacts that Indy's going after and bringing them back to a museum? Is that where they belong? Is that what are the sources behind it? So it kind of came from this just talking about that. How do we combine horror, family, and animation? And it became the stew that is Curses, if you will. That's a long-winded way of putting that.
Yeah.
I
So
got
I
really
love that
hungry.
you I love that you mentioned Indiana Jones because in that first episode, I was totally getting Indiana Jones vibes. I was like, is that just me thinking that? But I could totally get that feel. So Jeff, you are the horror guy, as Jim just said. So, how did you like? I mean, there's some scary elements, but it's also, kid friendly. So, how did you create the balance between, scary, but also kid friendly scary?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Coop and I, as a writing team, have a tendency to counterbalance each other when it comes to this because I will always try to push things into the darker and scarier, and he'll try to push things more into the comedic and zany. And I'll be like, no, that's too comedic, pull it back. And he'll be like, that's too dark, pull it back. And we end up in this nice little middle spot. So that's kind of why our writing team sensibilities really match well. And to be perfectly honest, we were all of us were really pushing as much scares as possible. We really wanted to because I firmly believe that it's actually a good thing to scare kids because kids, as someone who was a kid that liked to watch scary movies, I was terrified of scary movies when I was a kid. I was not like the kid who just be like, oh, whatever, no, it's scary. No, it freaked me out. Still to this day, I kind of watch things, like this. But I like the feeling of overcoming that fear. And it's like one of the things I remember when I was a kid is I'd watch something scary, and then when the credits rolled, I'd be like, yeah, I get this confidence that I overcame that. Watch another. And there's a lot of shows that are afraid to actually do some scares for kids. So we always wanted to make it as scary as humanly possible. We know that we couldn't do that. So what we ended up with in the end, which we're probably the most proud of, is what we may not have in just pure what would be considered scares, we make up with an atmosphere. So our show is very atmospheric and very cinematic and very just kind of it's harder to achieve that kind of scary, spooky, horror-esque atmosphere that even when something scary isn't happening, you have that feeling that something might be. So I think that's where we kind of landed on finding that balance is we may not be able to push these true pure horror scares, but we can create an atmosphere that kids can actually feel the horror within.
My youngest son, my youngest son is almost 10 and he's obsessed with scary movies. I mean, and he gets a kick out of watching me because I'm the one who's like covering my eyes and he cried. Yeah.
That's me too, by the way. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. People think, oh, he's the horror guy. He's not scared. No, I am falling out of my seat at the movie theater. I go see everything, but I'm scared to death of everything. But I don't know. It's a roller coaster for me. I like the scare.
Jim, are you gonna add something or?
Oh, no, usually I'm always like piping in a crack, and I held myself back that time.
I'm proud of you. I think that's the first time in our entire relationship you held something back.
Oh my goodness. All right, Liao. So the animation, it's really unique. I really enjoyed the whole design of it. How did you come up with the specific type of animation design? Did you kind of like talk through the process of that a little bit?
Sure. I think when I came onto the project and kind of looked at everything that was happening, one of the things that I think myself and David Chung, who was the art director on the series, brought was, I guess we felt like, since it is gateway or adventure scares, we wanted something that kind of immediately anchors it in the kind of a horror space. And we thought that referencing early EC Comics, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt would kind of, immediately give you that kind of reference, like a frame of reference to kind of the genre that we're kind of playing in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So another thing I really liked about the series was the diversity with not just the main characters, but all of the characters. Like I really enjoyed Larry and Stanley. They provided that necessary comedic relief to kind of throw in. They were really fun. So what was the development of creating the characters?
Of all of them, or even like Larry and Stanley?
What? Just all of them. Yeah, Larry and Stan, they were probably my favorites. I really like Larry. I like James Marsters. I saw he was the voice, and I saw him, and I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer way back when, so I was excited to see him.
We've gotten a lot of that from people like working on the crew and stuff like that. Like, we did not realize so much the Spike love until until recording.
Casting department was thrilled. They were so excited about Spike or about James.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like the characters, it's interesting. So like the ages of the characters, interestingly enough, actually come from both our families. And that I was telling the story that my dad died when I was younger. I was 12, my brother was 15. When we were coming up with this idea, Jeff's daughters were 12 and 15. So we were kind of looking at those age groups as going, oh, that's how old the kids are. Because like for both of us, we could come from there. Like we could understand that the family, and they're old enough to go on these adventures, but they're young enough that it's not like they're going off on their own. Stanley and Larry, a lot of that came from, we realized that we needed someone who would have some insider knowledge that they couldn't possibly have. And when we came up with the idea that it would be artifacts, we just loved that. And they're like, what are their stories? And honest to God, I think we did not think we would ever get a skull through. I think we just did like, it'll be a skull. There's no way that they're going to allow it. And they did. And he's turned out to be one of our favorite characters.
And we always knew everything about this show because of the artifacts and the inherent nature of everything. We wanted the show to be global, and we wanted this show to be encompassing of all different, cultures and ethnicities and everything, that it was always going to be in some combination, a multi-race family because we wanted every aspect, from the artifacts to the locations to the family, every aspect to feel more global and less localized.
Do you guys have a character that you're more like most drawn to, or like that you can relate to?
Well, no. I will say that the ongoing joke, and I mean it's kind of true, is that Stanley and Larry are Coop and I, because even as we both did even the scratch for him, and so I still see him as Stanley and he still sees me as Larry. And so I think because of that reason, as we were even writing them, because Coop is a crazy history nerd, and so you realize that a lot of the like descriptions about artifacts happen to come from Stanley, because that was Coop kind of writing as Stanley, and some of the little like, you know, sarcastic bits or whatever would be coming from Larry, and I'd be like, okay, I'm falling into this role a little bit. So it was like, I think for us it would probably be those two, just simply because they're kind of slightly sort of indicative of us a little.
Also, I do have to say a fun thing that we actually haven't said. The name Pandora
Oh yeah.
comes from Jeff's sister, whose name is Pandora.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we're like, did your parents know the story when they named her? Well, no, not really. But we just go, oh, there's something so great about a character, Pandora, who's more than happy to just jump right in and deal with the consequences later. So,
and I always called her Pan, and so we have the character call him Pan. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Leo, did you have a character that you were able to relate to?
I definitely have a favorite character, and I
Yeah.
think and actually I could be even more specific. I think Stanley running anywhere is my favorite. He's just
I like that.
perfect.
it is funny because we like on the artwork behind you, we specifically were even talking about the
Oh my
backward.
gosh, he's running.
Yeah,
because he never hunches over. He's
That's
always leaning back like a little Lego minifigure.
Yeah, totally. Oh my goodness. All right, I'll have one last question. What each of you, what would you like for families to take away from watching this series?
you know what? That we're all in it together. That, I mean, some people have asked us why include the mom in the adventure, because they don't usually have parents come along on adventures and stuff like that. But we were always kind of like, I mean, I think a family is a microcosm of life. That you got a family curse, you got to solve it as a family. It's not just either the parents will take care of it or the kids will take care of it, and figure out what's the root of the problem rather than just good guys and bad guys.
Yeah, I would agree with the family unit aspect. I mean, Coop and I are both very family oriented and like every aspect of it. So we were always liking the fact that there was kind of like this, not only the family going on the adventures, but the co-viewing aspect of it where the family could watch it together. And just from a personal thing, kind of just to reiterate what I said earlier, I want families to realize that it's okay for kids to be scared. It's okay to hit some fears and overcome those fears. It's okay to scare kids.
I guess I would include that this is what I would hope that they would take away. This is the gateway. This is the start. Right?
Well, thank you all for talking with me.
Thank
I've had a
you.
lot of fun. It was great to meet you all.
Great meeting you.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.